Hello and welcome to Steven University. This week we're talking about a very special episode. No, I'm not describing it. That's its title. That was straight off the top of my head, Chris. Sometimes I amaze even myself. That sounded pre-written, folks. That was me stumbling in the dark for a thing to say.
I think people just assume the majority of what we put to Mike is stumbling in the dark for something to say.
It's literally what we probably should have called the podcast, or the channel at the very least. Nothing but static, aka stumbling in the dark for something to say.
Nothing but static is fairly close to meaning that, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. That's true. I think one of the original working titles was Pointless Noises, which is...
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Right, so... a very special episode. Now, this is an interesting one. So, we didn't recap on the last episode like we probably should have. Let's recap briefly here.
Let's do it.
I mean, the synopsis pretty much does this, but Rainbow Quartz 2.0 is as promised to sort of babysit / hang out with Onion, but also at the same time, Stephen had agreed to go to Little Homeworld and fuse with Garnet to be Sunstone to do a health and safety geminar, because of course when Garnet talks about health and safety, she just uses her future vision to terrify everyone. So Stephen's torn between the two.
Just because it's an important distinction for a point of mine later, the webinar starts at their house. In Beach, it starts in the
it does.
Gems home.
Yes, yeah, it does. That's right. Sorry, yeah, it does, and then it ends up at Little Homeworld. Yeah, so that's where it goes back and forth, and then basically we build to Stephen goes to be Sunstone, but then it's chaos back with Onion because he leaves Pearl there, so he goes back to Pearl, but then Garnet is terrifying the Little Homeworld people, so then he has to go back to her. And it all builds up to Stephen passing out while Onion Pied Pipers several Little Homeworld gems off a cliff. And it turns out the entire thing was some sort of weird meta PSA from Sunstone. And it ends in a Sonic Says style. And she sort of says directly to the camera, don't overload your schedule, kids. And then thus ends one of the strangest episodes of Steven Universe I think I've ever seen. Before I can hear Chris sighing, so before he gets to that, I will put forward my perspective on it, which is, if this was a full show, like Steven Universe length show, and not described as sort of a mini-series epilogue or whatever, I would be fine with this. It was funny. It was in character for Sunstone. It was nice to see both again. I enjoyed a lot of the gags and things that happen in it. It's weird, sure, but so was, say, Uncle, so was Garnet's Universe. There are episodes in the past that we've had that have been weird that I've just been like, that's functional, that's fine. It would never be on my favorite list of mine, but I was mildly entertained for 10 minutes, and what more can I ask for, right? A couple episodes in a big run like this are totally fine to do that. But that's not what's happened here, and it feels like my frustration is, if we're only getting 10 episodes, this is a missed opportunity, maybe. Misplaced direction, because I feel like we could be focusing on maybe more relevant, important things. The episode itself, though, outside of the context of that, is fine. It's silly, it's funny. You don't really get a lot out of it, because it's mostly sort of very vague health and safety PSAs that I don't think, unless you're very young children, aren't going to take much away from. And the idea of overworking yourself is not handled brilliantly well. It's all handled so cheesily, because that's the point. So yeah, I mean, I think you don't get much out of it, but it's entertaining 10 minutes for me, or 11 minutes for me. But I can feel, I'm not even in the same room as him, but I can feel the thoughts basically steaming off Chris right now. So go on, Chris. So I must admit, someone asked me last night, what do you reckon Chris thinks to this episode? And I'm pretty sure I responded, he will not enjoy. I don't think he will enjoy this at all.
Did not.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
Look, it was, comfortably my least favourite episode of Steven Universe Future.
Yep.
Comfortably. Didn't really enjoy it, but I did the stuff. Some elements I enjoyed. Look, as you said, there's a lot of good humour. It's fun to see the two fusions, so that was great. I think Amethyst saying, "Stephen, I've missed you. I feel like I've not seen you for a whole 11 minutes,"
Yes.
was very funny.
Yes.
I don't know whether it needed a look to the camera or not. I know they didn't do that, but I'm saying, like, I don't know whether the look to the camera would have made me hate it or love it more. But there we go. But I enjoyed that as a little joke.
Yes.
And there was some really good fan stuff in here. But fundamentally, as you said, I think it's a huge missed opportunity. And the just, as it was happening, I was a bit irritated because I was like, well, this exactly what you said. It feels like this is why I'm so worried about it just being 10 episodes, because it felt like, and we covered in the last episode, you know, how that's, some people don't think that, and actually we don't want that, but like, the more stuff they do like this, which felt like, we've not really explored Rainbow Quartz 2.0 and Sunstone, so we should do an episode where we explore them, which is great in principle. And you know what? Even the core concept of having to be in two places at once, one as Rainbow Quartz 2.0 and one as Sunstone, fine. But why were they doing the things they were doing? Like, fine, it's tied to this very special episode, and I guess that's the point. But in a world where you've only got 10 episodes, why wasn't Sunstone even setting the first scene of that in Little Homeschool would have been nice. Like, let's use it as an excuse to explore the world rather than exploring safety tips for children that a lot of the audience are going to have seen before or know, and Onion being weird, which is always entertaining, don't get me wrong, but something that we've seen before. Maybe they could be helping the gem that we met in the new gem that we met in the first episode, or maybe one of the uncorrupted gems, or, you know, maybe hell, Lars in his new bakery. Like, we've seen Onion be weird. We've seen the you know, in our own actual life, the taking care of gems, and I appreciate that the gems learning that stuff is probably is potentially interesting. I'd argue there's more interesting stuff, but the joke of it, or the way that was played, was the gems are scared by Garnet and the things that are being said. We weren't actually seeing, other than immediate fear because Garnet going to extremes, we weren't actually even getting them reacting to the things they were being told. This is more ranty than I intended it to be. And then, the ending. So you have Onion run away, and I'm like, well, you know, we spent a lot of time on the back and forth, potentially more than we needed, but there's a few minutes left. We've got time. So cool. Maybe Onion's about to do something sweet and they're going to work together, or Onion's going to do something stupid but the other gems aren't going to follow him because they have listened. And maybe the message is going to be that Stephen doesn't need to overwork himself. He needs to put a bit of trust in other people and a bit of trust that they don't need to be spoon-fed everything. Onion doesn't need to be babysat. The gems don't need to be spoon-fed how to behave on Earth, because there's a certain amount of natural instinct that will pick these things up. And when those two groups of people, Onion and the gems, are together, that's going to happen, and they're going to realise that. And the lesson is going to be, look, don't burn yourself into the ground overworking and committing to too many things, because you might actually not need to. And I thought, well, fine, there will be a redeeming message. It's in line with the episode. Cool. That's not how it ends, Dan. That's not how it ends at all. It ends with just this meta joke that makes a little bit of a mockery, in my opinion, maybe, of the message. And I was like, huh? Like, yeah, didn't enjoy the ending and thought there was an awful lot of wasted potential in the main body. That sounded rantier than I intended, but that is how I felt at the end of the episode. Although humorous, and as you said, in a world where there's 30 episodes of this show, and there very well might be, so I'm prepared for my view to change if that turns out to be the case, then this is a fun little romp. I still would have come up with I still would have hit against the ending, and I still feel that there are ways to use those fusions where we get to explore the fusions and other elements of the world or the characters we've not explored before.
Yeah, yeah, that was it. It's interesting actually because I sort of most of your points like that you're talking about just about the episode in general, I 100% like agreed with already. Like I already thought of that stuff as I was watching it and was like, yeah, I see these issues. Would they be issues for me? Nah, maybe not. Like in terms of like in a world where there's more episodes, I don't think it's like a huge. They didn't cause me any trouble while watching it, if that makes sense. But your point about the ending, I hadn't really thought. The ending was strange. I 100% caught that when I watched it. But you're right to think actually because when I said it was a missed opportunity, I was very specifically referring to the sort
exploring the fusions.
No, for me, like it was more of a missed opportunity in the sense of do you want to waste an episode on something so frivolous? Yeah. In a world where we might only have 10, 20 episodes, if there are 50, okay, but if there's only 10 or 20, then maybe this is a wasted 11 minutes because wasted's a strong word, but like this is maybe, time not perfectly, time spent arguably unproductively with a weird bit of irony to it, considering the content of the episode. What I hadn't considered is that there were probably actually good ways to get that message across, forgetting the meta stuff altogether. Like the idea, you're right, I hadn't even thought of it. The idea that like Stephen could learn, not be trying to teach as being part of this weird meta narrative, but actually, learning it himself. So the message comes across by a character learning the lesson, not by the characters turning to the camera at the end and going, and here was the lesson. That genuinely never occurred to me because it being a Sunstone episode. I think there was a certain amount of the whole time I was like, yeah, like it's probably I don't know. I didn't think it was going to end exactly like it did. The pull out of the camera of the studio, but I definitely thought it was going to end with Sunstone being like, and that's the lesson. Like very. But
you could have done both. You could have done everything I described and then still have the pull out and pull away, and it would have meant more because it would have been learnt more.
Yeah, it was really strange. The whole Onion becomes the Pied Piper thing and they go off a cliff. Like, that was really odd. That's the bit that they kind of lost me because I was just like, I don't even know what this is anymore.
And maybe that's a deliberate choice. Maybe it's deliberately building to madness. But it doesn't. They almost don't push that enough for me to go, well, it descends into chaos so that, They deliberately have written themselves into a hole where the only way to get out of this is to go, it was all a sketch, whee! Yeah. But they don't even up it that much, in my opinion. No. It just feels like they've written themselves into a hole.
Yeah, basically when Onion arrives at Little Homeworld, there's 2 minutes left. And then it descends into chaos. With 2 minutes left. Yeah. Maybe it should have started descending into chaos, at least in smaller ways, at 5 minutes. And when I say chaos, I mean stuff that's so bizarre, you're starting to think, is this really happening now, or is this a bit? Because the thing is, everything that happens prior to that, despite being a little bit cheesy and a little bit like, PSA, still could really be happening in the world and not be part of some weird video thing they've made. Do you know what I mean? It's only the weird meta stuff at the end where they lay that out. But it only gets so weird that it can't be what's really happening anymore. With about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes left, which is when Onion blows on the grass and makes them. Everything else could be in universe, if that makes sense. That's the moment they go off piece. So arguably, it would have been nice to have some moments of that earlier in the episode. Yeah, I don't know. It's because the thing is, it's so hard to get angry about for me and to think too deeply about because it's obviously supposed to be just like a fun, frivolous piece of entertainment. But it's consequence free. It's say uncle. It really is. It's like funny and so I find it hard to be too mad at it because I'm just like, well, the point of this one wasn't to be a big, complex, deep, well thought out sort of character arc.
But
It was designed to be silly fun for 11 minutes, which it absolutely was. But you're right, there were ways to have your cake and eat it too here, maybe, and they didn't go that route. And
I think
kind of frustrating.
That's a big thing, especially when it comes to the ending, but also like, I mean, one obviously for me, it's like Say Uncle was never going to be a defense, but Say Uncle had if you introduced Uncle Grandpa into the show. Say Uncle is only ever going one way, and whilst I have my problems with it, and I thought it was a waste of time or whatever, it's a crossover episode. Say Uncle. Say Uncle is what it is, and I don't look at that and go, well, there are better ways to use the Uncle Grandpa character. Why didn't they do that? Whereas this. Seeing the idea that we might only get this appearance of Sunstone and Rainbow Quartz 2.0, and it was done that way, and not even that it was done that way, but it was done that way in, as I've laid out, in my opinion, not an interesting. They still could have executed it exactly the same way, but just have them dealing with something that isn't what they're dealing with, or even the way they're dealing with it. Have it be things that lets us explore this whole new world that you've created, that 10 episodes or not, we're probably never going to get the chance to explore. So why are we exploring the fact that Onion's a little weird when we've explored that loads before? Why are we exploring that Garnet can freak out the gems without seeing their reaction or exploring Little Homeschool more? Like, it's not just. I'm fine with it being fun, but it's when there are, in my opinion, just other ways to execute that fun. And again, I did find it entertaining. Like, Onion is always fun. Don't get me wrong, Onion is absolutely always fun. I like Onion. In a world where Ronaldo has every fear confirmed and now has to live, we see it briefly in this episode, or was it the last episode?
No, it's this one where they run through and stomp on his pizza.
Where they run through and stomp on his pizza, and that really made me laugh. But also it makes you go, yeah, how is Ronaldo adapting to this? How is Lars adapting to this? How are the gems that have always been hidden in the off colors that are now free reacting to this?
I feel like we're definitely going to get an off colors episode though. So I'm like, I know that's definitely coming.
Fine. But there's but I'm just naming the examples that come to the top of my head. If you gave me 2 hours in the internet, I could list you 10 examples. I wasn't thrilled.
Yeah, but I mean that links into my point though, which is just that the whole episode was like misconceived, like initially, like because that was my point. So yeah, you're trying to think of ways to make this episode, sort of bend this episode to that will. What I'm saying is that probably would have hurt the episode more than helped it, because then it would have been trying to be this and trying to be the other thing as well.
Not if you don't do that weird PDA thing at the end.
Maybe not, but the PSA thing. Yeah, I think you probably would have detracted and hurt this more. I think the honest answer is the concept was flawed from the beginning. To do it as this weird long PSA episode. That's where I think the misstep maybe was, because as soon as you do that, you're locked into essentially making this episode as it is, or something close to it, and you could force in other elements if you wanted, but I don't think it would help, because
for me, I think you could do it, but I don't want to get into, because we've got into 10 minutes of arguing about fictional versions of episodes that don't exist.
Trust me. I don't feel passionately enough about this point to even get into an argument about it.
I'm not saying you will, but you know what I mean. All of that stuff depends on execution, which we can't.
Yeah, of course. 100%. What I'm saying is though, like, we're kind of in agreement. We're agreeing, but the solutions are different. That's what I'm saying. So you're thinking of ways to make this better, and what I'm sort of coming around to is this episode is what it is, and I think ultimately the mistake was made in conception. In a world where you've only got 10, 20 episodes, whatever it's going to be, the mistake was made when they decided to use one of those episodes to do something this frivolous, when they could have designed a story that involved the two characters we wanted to explore. Because ultimately, I think we can both agree that most likely the conception of this episode was we want to do an episode with Rainbow Quartz and Sunstone. They were fusions that were only introduced in Change Your Mind. They never got much play the way that Smoky Quartz did or anything like that. You remember Know Your Fusion, the episode where Smoky Quartz met Sardonyx and got interviewed, what kind of gem are you? They essentially wanted to do that for Sunstone and Rainbow Quartz.
Which is why all of this links back to that fear of what this is and whether it's 2010 and what we're getting, because it feels like you could look at some of the lessons, some of the episodes now, and go, what are the threads? And Pink Pearl, tick. Jasper, tick. How the gems adapt to Earth, tick. The fusions was quite quick and Change Your Mind, wasn't it? Tick. That's why 100%. That point keeps coming up. Yeah.
But for me though, when you sit down with that as your initial conceit, there are maybe better episodes you could have done to explore that. But I can also see how they got here, because let's be honest, this episode is one half Mary Poppins parody, one half PSA, which, let's be honest, is the characters that they've chosen to explore. So you can absolutely see how they got there. It's very, very logical that they'd have brought these two characters in that particular way. Again, is it my favourite thing they've done? No, but again, I had fun-ish watching it. I just feel like it was a missed opportunity, maybe in a couple of ways. But it's funny actually, because now one thing I did think watching this, which was a shame, which is maybe the issue is even going back, is when they conceived Rainbow Quartz 2.0 and Sunstone. Maybe they conceived them because it was just like a fun 1 minute thing in Change Your Mind in sort of a two-dimensionally way, because they only really needed to be in the episode for 30 seconds. Rainbow Quartz 2.0, it's the last episode. Maybe it's a Mary Poppins parody. Awesome. Click. What about Sunstone? Sunstone's like a PSA thing. Cool. Click. And then the problem they have here is, well, how do we round that out? Because they only had 2 minutes of screen time between them in Change Your Mind. How much actually is left of these characters to explore? Because we made them kind of not one note, because they only needed to be one note, but they lent too much into what we already knew about them rather than teaching us something new about the characters.
I don't know about that personally, because I struggle to see a world where Rebecca Sugar doesn't have a notepad from 6 years ago that breaks down what all the different fusions. But do you know what I mean? Like seriously, which breaks down what
forgetting
the fusions are like. And
forgetting that assertion, then would you agree that maybe the issue here is then that they spent the time reinforcing what we already learned about them in Change Your Mind instead of teaching us something new about them?
No, but it's very difficult. That's a very difficult question for me to answer, because I don't want to repeat myself. That's not good. It's not interesting.
No, but let's think back to Know Your Fusion though. So we met Smoky Quartz in the fight with Jasper, right? Smoky Quartz is like, "Hey, I'm here. I've got a yo-yo," and like beats the crap out of Jasper and then unfuses, right? So we've seen Smoky Quartz, but we haven't got to know Smoky Quartz yet. And then we get Know Your Fusion, which I think is a brilliant episode exploring the personality of Smoky Quartz. She's being interviewed by Sardonyx. She doesn't really feel like she knows herself, because she's got some of Steven's and Amethyst's self-doubt built in, and it's a really interesting exploration of what the person is like. So for me, when I think about missed opportunities in this episode, I'm thinking actually problem here was from minute one, because they went down the route of Mary Poppins and PSAs. That's the one thing we already knew about these characters. Maybe it would have been better spent finding a different angle to look at these characters from, so we could learn something newer about them rather than what we already knew.
I agree with that, but I think we both have different angles on the solutions for this, and my angle on that is that you could still do this, but explore those characters from the reactions to the world around them. You could still do this, but you have Rainbow Quartz 2.0 trying to be Mary Poppins, and just coming up against an impossible force. So you
Right.
have some of, I'm trying to think of an example, but okay, so you have it's Mary Poppins, but she's a kick-ass fighter because both Pearl and Stephen are kick-ass fighters, but then something's happening that's making her emotional, and you've got the emotional side of Pearl and Stephen. Or if they did this plot, but she was being Mary Poppins with a gem, and that gem then reminds or brings up Rose. Rose is this huge crux for both of them, and Rainbow Quartz
Crumbles.
It's 2.0. It's a new Rose isn't part of 2.0, but then Rose is being brought back in, and so what does that mean?
I
for
guess
Rainbow Quartz
that would have given
2.0?
you a good a good excuse to use pink powers, because what I thought was interesting was obviously when we got Smoky Quartz a couple episodes back, Smoky Quartz went pink, and we established that. And in my head, when that happened, I went, "Ooh, I wonder if we're going to see pink powers for Rainbow Quartz 2.0 and
2.0,
Sunstone." When Steven becomes both of those. It's an interesting thought. Yeah, I mean that's
so yes,
certainly
I absolutely agree with you. I'd still come at it from. I think we agree with each other. But
yeah,
as
we
you
know
said,
we're agreeing. We're just got
our
different
solutions are
and
different,
and for me,
I think you can do that in my solution.
I think what you're describing works, but I think what that is like that's trying to fit us. To me, that's fitting a square into a round hole. You can make it go if you push it hard enough, but for me, I think a cleaner version of it is to just maybe conceive the episode from in a different angle, rather than sort of bend this to the shape you want. But yeah,
you can, in my opinion, you can do this if you want to. You can do this entire episode, but just take out the PSA angle of it. Like you can still literally do this plot, but it ends with something genuine, like the Onion helping them.
Certainly would have been better than
Stephen
what we got. Yeah, it certainly would have been better than what we got. Although again, what we got, I thought was entertaining. Can I point out something?
Yeah.
Let's talk about some positives. Can I point out some of the things that I thought were particularly brilliant? Because I've made notes of the stuff I really loved. The first thing Onion does is open his mouth and a piece of broccoli falls out. Fucking who doesn't love Onion? What a fucking weird character. And I wrote it down that way. I literally wrote the words, "that fucking piece of broccoli," in those exact words. Because what a mental way to start the episode. Like, it's start as you intend to continue. It's brilliant. So there's that. Then there's
I love when he's torturing Pearl, and then all Steven does is turn on the light, and it's immediately less threatening.
Yeah, I want to talk about the horror stuff. That's in my list. Let's skip straight to that. Like, Pearl's horror call. "You were never like this, Steven. You were a good kid. I'm so sorry I never told you that," in like a Blair Witch style shot. And then she's like, "I can hear him, but I can't see him." And there's some scuttling. She's like, "I think he's in the walls." Like, what an amazing joke that is. That when Pearl is left alone with Onion, it's basically a horror movie. That's great.
But also so clever, because we know that he could be in the walls because he's got all those secret fucking
he had that secret passageway to a little room, didn't he? Yeah, that's right. So that's all amazing. I love that when Steven and Garnet unfuse, Garnet rolls off on the skateboard Sunstone was stood on. So Sunstone is on a skateboard, they defuse, and just a lovely animation detail. Garnet is left, stood on the skateboard, just sort of rolling off to the side. It's brilliantly animated. It's another really nice detail to an unfusion. That's 2 for 2 on that front for me. The motion smoothing joke. Holy shit. So, for those who don't know, famously, like, lots of TVs come with this horrendous setting called motion smoothing that is usually automatically on and makes everything look like dog turd. The average consumers don't know it exists, and several directors and actors have gone to the trouble of being like, turn motion smoothing off. I think to the point where I'm pretty sure I think it was Mission Impossible Fallout's DVD, when you go to start the movie, there's I swear to God, a genuine PSA from Tom Cruise that's like, turn off motion smoothing on your TV. Before you watch this movie, please. And it's become like this running joke. You go to Comic-Con and there are TVs that are displaying like trailers and stuff, and people are like, "I think you've got motion smoothing on." Like, ha ha ha, Comic-Con, where people should be informed about this stuff. They've still got motion smoothing. Ha ha ha. So motion smoothing is this big like running thing, and then so Sunstone is just running around being like, and you can't leave stuff on the stairs or you'll trip over, and you can't do this or you'll get hurt in this way, and also always turn motion smoothing off.
But I really love later on when
Yes.
Steven's like, "You've turned motion smoothing back on," and Garnet's like, "It's better for football."
Yeah, that's exactly it. He comes in, he's like, huh? Motion smoothing? And she's like, yeah, it's better for football. It's great. I love that so much. The whole motion smoothing gag amused me so much. So 100%. There's a line later when I think Pearl says on the phone to Steven when she's like, she gets distracted by a noise and she turns around to speak to him. She goes, wow, Onion, that's a beautiful bag of hair. I think that's Greg's hair. I think Greg's hair was sent out to sea. Onion's dad is a seaman. Is a boat guy. Yellowtail. He rides a boat. What does he do? Is he a fisherman? Is that his job? It's hard to tell. They never really explore it.
I feel like you did that because you were worried I would make some obvious crass seaman joke. Like you were like, seaman. No, don't leave it at seaman. He's a boat person. He's a sailor.
No, I genuinely, yeah, because when I was forced to use the word seaman, that just forced me to go, no, what's his job?
Fisherman, I thought, I must say.
Is he a fisherman? Do we know? Have we ever seen him fishing? We might have done.
He looks a bit like a fisherman, doesn't he?
Yeah, but people on boats would look like that, don't they? He has a boat.
True.
I don't always. I assume fisherman. We may have even seen him fishing at some point. I just don't recall. Either way,
well, we could assume he's not in the Navy.
Yeah, fair enough. So my assumption is that at some point he somehow picked up, either attached to his boat or in a net if he is a fisherman, that clump of Greg's hair. And now Onion has it. Because otherwise, that is such a... I mean, if it is just a coincidence and it's just like, oh, here's a random line, oh, what a bag of hair you have, Onion, or whatever, then fine. But straight after the episode where Greg lost his and it went out to sea, that seems a bit too much of a coincidence, don't you think?
Yeah. No, that's very funny.
So wow, Onion, what a beautiful bag of hair. So that's another detail that I just thought was funny. I loved that when Rainbow Quartz is like, yeah, I can definitely come round, and in the background, Onion's making a collage that says "Never leave." So good. Also, Onion's weird Steven voodoo doll. That's just it's funnily enough, right? So they do it really well. When the scene is happening with Rainbow Quartz, the opening scene, it's in the background, visible, and my eyes kept being drawn to it. Like, is that a weird Steven voodoo doll? And then about a minute later, the episode actually cuts to it, and Rainbow Quartz comments on it like, "What is that?" Like, it's very, very well done. I'm trying to think. Oh God. Oh, Zach's delivery on the line. I'm combining all my responsibilities into one responsibility. His delivery on that, which I did no justice to at all.
Yeah.
Wonderful. There is a clue that it's all fake in some way. When Onion Pied Pipers them off the cliff, he actually shows regret, which Onion would never do. He sort of puts his hands to his mouth like, oh no, what's happened? Which Onion wouldn't do. That's one I think I nicked from somebody mentioning that on the Discord, but it is a really good point. I don't know. This is just me just listing things I loved, but I just want to make sure we get the positivity out there and other things that worked really well. I also like that when I watched it the second time, I noticed more so that it wasn't just one half of the episode was PSAs, because when I first watched it, I'm like, one half is Mary Poppins, one half is PSAs. But because that in the end is revealed that it's all supposed to be a PSA, I went, well, that's a bit strange then. Why would your PSA video include all the Mary Poppins stuff? Like, what's the point of... If this is a video of some sort that Sunstone has made, why has it got all the random Mary Poppins stuff in it? But when I watched it the second time, I was like, oh no, there's loads of PSAs built into the Rainbow Quartz stuff as well. It's just, Rainbow Quartz is like, do your dishes, tidy up.
It starts with a song about tidying, yeah.
Don't jump off that, Onion. It's all about tidying and safety as well. So it's the entire thing is top to bottom PSA, which I actually think, considering the ending, tracks. Do you know what I mean? For better or worse, it works in that sense.
Yeah.
As a unit. I think you already mentioned this, but the I need Steven. I need Steven. Amethyst comes in. No, wait, I need Steven. What is it, Amethyst? I just miss you, man. I haven't seen you in like 11 minutes. Which,
Yeah, that was very good.
such a good joke. For a couple of reasons. I still just love, I just miss you, man. Even there, I'd have been happy with that joke. But then the 11 minutes things tops it off because obviously she was relatively prominently featured towards the end of Bluebird, and therefore it would have been literally 11 minutes since he saw her. And also, the Sunstone thing towards the end when they're playing volleyball and she's talking to the camera and Pearl's in the background going, Sunstone, who are you talking to? That's the first time anyone has like acknowledged that Sunstone is like talking to a camera.
Yeah.
Previously everyone has ignored it, but Pearl going, Sunstone, who are you talking to? Is great. So that's my just very quick points that I made as I went through it. Sorry, I didn't mean to just blurt all those out in one.
No, I think they're all very valid. I think, like I said, like whilst I've got my issues with it, like there were entertaining moments without a doubt, and there were comedy moments. And I think, if I watched it again and knew what was coming and was less, slightly harped by that, I'd probably, enjoy it more. And I think I'd feel the same way, and all my points would be the same, but they'd maybe come out in in less of a rant.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well. I will say that like one point I didn't level as a criticism at it because it's our own fault a little bit for overanalyzing. But when you hear the title "A Very Special Episode," we talked about this on our podcast, and there's a TV Tropes page on it if you want to look into it. But the history of those words as a title of a TV show suggests deeper, darker ideas, right?
Yeah, but maybe the counter to that is, but this show covers those without needing to
100%.
be under the gloss of
And,
a very
you know,
special episode.
And anyone who takes the titles of this show seriously in analysis is shooting themselves in the foot. This show has proven time and time again that the titles will always mislead you somehow. When volleyball turned out to be one of the most emotionally powerful episodes of the series. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you remember Hit the Diamond? Everyone heard you weren't following the show then. That was before you caught up. But the TV show, the episode Hit the Diamond. Everyone goes, oh, the diamonds are going to be showing up, all this stuff. They played baseball for 11 minutes. Like, it was nothing to do with the diamonds at all. So you're foolish for going against it. And the reason I don't count it as a legit criticism is because, of course, the only people who did that are the obsessive fans, which, while there is a very thriving Reddit, community, there's the Discord communities and stuff, we are the minority in that. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people watch these episodes. Let's be honest here. Most of them didn't know the name of the episode before they sat down to watch it. Right? That's the fact.
That's absolutely fair.
So I couldn't possibly level the criticism of, is that title not a bit hampering the episode because you're expecting deep, dark, and it's silly, frivolous fun? Does that maybe color your opinion of it a bit more, that you go into it expecting something different? In fact, the episode was also kind of hampered by, and now it makes more sense what he meant. But one of the people who I think animated on the show or did music for the show, I can't remember who tweeted about it and said this episode airs after Bluebird, but it is nothing like Bluebird. And which is
completely fair.
Which is completely fair and true, having seen it. But how that was perceived in a world of we haven't seen it yet and we knew it was called A Very Special Episode, everyone went, oh, this could be some heavy stuff. Bluebird's frivolous fun, and then this is like hits you with a hammer with something really dark and emotional. So I think a lot of people went into this episode with expectations that the episode just was never intended to meet. And I don't think that's the episode's fault. So I that's the reason I haven't levied that criticism on it. But before anyone puts that in the comments, I wanted to cover it in the podcast.
I think I named it as one of the episodes I was most excited about, somewhat ironically now.
Yeah, but for good reason. Again, if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, head to the TV Tropes page for A Very Special Episode and have a read about the history of that, what that title is, and what it leads to, and what it has been used as in the past. And you can certainly see how we interpreted it that way. I don't know. I was trying to think if like that was intentional misdirection, or if it's just they meant a very special episode in the sort of very special as in we're going to like taking because the point of those old very special episodes was there's a message here, you know. So the Different Strokes one, probably one of the more famous examples of a very special episode, was an episode about essentially a paedophile, and it was a message to kids to say, hey, if a strange person asks you to do something you're not comfortable with, go tell an adult. Like, get, you know, and it's a good message. It's important for kids to understand that there's adults who make them do inappropriate things. And they should be aware to get out of that situation as quickly and as easily as possible and get an adult, you know, best they can, and like make kids aware that there are threats out there. Because as much as we want to protect children from even knowing that the world is a dark place, it's also in the interest of their safety to know that it is, because we want them to respond correctly to those situations too. Because sadly, that's what predators prey on, is that kind of innocence. So that episode had a really important message to it. But I was wondering if instead of this intentionally being a mislead, like Hit the Diamond, maybe they were just looking at it's an episode with messages, so it's a very special episode. Maybe that's why. So it wasn't an intentional misdirect to something darker. From the perspective of the writers, they were like, okay, they're not as these messages aren't as heavy as like the Different Strokes one, but this is still messages aimed at kids about safety and all that stuff. So we'll call it a very special episode. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, maybe
it still fits the trope, sort of, just in a sort of sidewaysy way where it's a little bit lighter. Whereas traditionally, these very special episodes were usually quite heavy in the history of that term.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and I think that's very possible. I think my inkling is it's the PSA spoof of it, but I think there's probably definitely dual meaning there. Yeah.
Very quickly then, before we wrap up, because it feels like we're building to a close. I have a question and then another thing to compliment on the episode. Was it all a video, or was it some weird gem power concoction from Sunstone?
God knows. I have no idea, and that probably doesn't help my feelings on it.
Because when it pulls out and it's on the TV screen, my initial thought was, oh, Sunstone got everyone together and they made a little movie. But then I thought, on the second viewing, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's just some weird Sunstone power that she can make the TV show what she wants it to show.
Because part of me was like, well, maybe it did all happen, and then Sunstone's using it to make a point. I have no idea, and don't think there's a clear answer to that. And you know what? Fair play to them. There probably isn't meant to be either.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't figure out if it was like a weird gem power or if it was an actual video they made, and I'm still confused as to which it is. Fair enough. And then the compliment, and I'm ending on the compliment. I say ending. I don't know. I'll obviously, if you want to add anything else, I'll let. For me, my last thing I specifically wanted to bring up, and this is the reason I said this one to last, is because this is genuinely my favorite thing about the entire episode. Rather than just being a funny moment, Rainbow Quartz's song and the visuals that accompany that, and the toys going back in, as much as it is just, of course, in Brett Copemark's, a Mary Poppins parody, it is done wonderfully, and it captures that sort of weird magical feeling of Mary Poppins, but is also a very Steven Universe sequence. And I love how they onion it, and the song starts really normal and sweet, and then Rainbow Quartz is forced to sing about the weird shit that Onion is doing. I loved it. I love that song is probably the best thing to come from this episode, and I will absolutely dig out that song time and time again. I think that's one I'll definitely pull up. Like, I'll pull up that clip, that 2-3 minutes of the episode. Thoroughly enjoyed.
I also love how magical it makes Rainbow Quartz to Onion, and like when Onion later on is smashing stuff, I interpreted it as like there's one specific moment where he's like smashing a china cup or something with an umbrella, and I'm like, I don't think he's smashing it. He's trying to make it come to life like Rainbow Quartz did.
Yes.
Like that whole song sets up this really sweet affection that he has for her.
Correct.
Which I think is lovely, actually. So yeah, I completely agree. The song was brilliant.
Yeah, and I loved the other Mary Poppins reference of like sliding them up the stairs on the banister. It went on a couple of attempts too many, I think.
Yeah, you could argue that. Yeah,
Because there's a rule of thumb with these things. So like, and this is just my like a personal opinion. So if anyone remembers that Family Guy joke where Peter Griffin falls over and he goes ah, ah, and it goes on for ages, and it's funny when it first happens, then it stops being funny, and then it goes on for so absurdly long. It's like minutes of the episode. Then it becomes funny again because you're just like, this is ridiculous. They are legitimately wasting our time now for just shits and giggles. And it becomes funny again, right? The onion gag is funny, but starts to become unfunny. And I was waiting for them to keep doing it long enough to loop back around to being funny because it was so ridiculous how many times they were doing it. And I think they were just 1 or 2 attempts short of that. So you either have to make it longer so it becomes that gag, or shorter so you don't waste my time. One or the other. Take your pick. I'm not picky. I'll have either.
yeah.
But yeah, it was 1 or 2 times either too many or too few, depending on your perspective.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So there you go. I didn't notice the umbrella thing, by the way. I thought that's a really sweet observation, Chris.
Yeah, no, I just and I think that and the animation in Onion's Joy whenever she comes back is just really sweet, and that is one of my, I didn't hate all of it. I didn't hate the stuff I had a problem with. I just had a problem with it, but there's definitely stuff to really enjoy, and I think Onion's reaction to her throughout is really sweet and engaging. And
I've just brought it up on my screen, and if I remember, I'll edit it into the video, but no promises, because we're editing these on a bit of a crunch. The bit where Onion is, where it's seen through Steven's phone, so Steven's talking to Pearl, and she turns the phone to Onion, and he's hitting the thing with the umbrella. I've got that shot paused. He looks really angry. Like, why isn't this working? He looks quite grumpy with it. Like, you are 100% right. It's funny how I didn't even spot that. My brain just dismissed it. It went, oh, it's just Onion breaking stuff, like Onion does. It's just typical Onion chaos.
No, I think all his behaviour is about rainbow quartz.
Isn't that such a sweet thing that they became like? So yeah, a few people have said babysitting because it does feel kind of like babysitting, but it feels more like them hanging out to me.
I think I used the term babysitting earlier, and I think that's.
I think I have too.
I don't like to paint it that way because it kind of implies, well, isn't this always going to be an issue then? Is Onion always going to be wanting Rainbow Quartz 2.0? But Steven had a similar relationship with him, and that was just from hanging out. So I think Steven's just brought Pearl along for the ride to try and teach Onion some shit,
Yeah. I just think they've become friendly somehow. A weird part of me wants to sort of see how that happened, but because it does feel a bit like Garnet doing a Geminar makes perfect sense. You don't need to explain that. We've got enough context for the world. They're teaching new gem stuff, but yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
Weird. I'd love to see the story of how that came to be. Oh, one very last quick thing, as well, just a correction from the other episode. The Nephrite that was flying in the second episode, Guidance, was not the Nephrite. Her gem is in her eye.
Oh, okay.
So we've not yet seen our Nephrite. I stand by my point, though, which is we still need that episode of Steven and Nephrite.
Yeah, completely agree.
Correcting.
Is there any trivia on this episode?
I should check, shouldn't I? Let's have a look. Amethyst breaks the fourth wall by mentioning she's not seen Steven in 11 minutes, the average length of an episode. Steven states that when they are hanging out, it is implied Rainbow. While Steven states they are hanging out with Onion, it is implied that Rainbow and by extension Steven and Pearl are babysitting Onion for Fidalia. I disagree with that. I don't think it's too directly implied. Yeah. Pearl admits to Steven that he was a good kid and was never like Onion. Why is that trivia? That's just what happens in the episode. Fuck me, there's already bad trivia. Oh, this one I knew because I noticed it myself, but I haven't mentioned it, so I'm glad this one's here. Sunstone can be seen on a set that is very similar looking to the one used in the Dove Self-Esteem Project videos. Extremely similar looking to the point where I thought it pretty much probably was supposed to be that set. So there you
Cool.
go. Rainbow Course 2.0's song, the tidying song, is a reference to Mary Poppins' song, A Spoonful of Sugar, as well as the way they send Onion up the stairs. Additionally, the rainbow they can conjure with their hands may be a reference to SpongeBob SquarePants. Yeah, there's like the SpongeBob meme, isn't there, where he's made a rainbow with his between his hands somehow.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know the context for that because I don't remember that episode of SpongeBob, but yeah, there you go. There you go. I think I mentioned this earlier. Sunstone's safety lesson shown at the end is a reference to the Sonic Says segment from the old Sonic cartoon, Sonic AM, I think. Oh no, it's The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, the really cartoony one, segments in which the titular character teaches viewers about various topics. There you go. Steven's commercial for Little Homeworld was filmed during Bluebird, yeah, we've seen that. And Garnet terrifying the gems all the ways to die, similar to how she scared Steven in the episode Future Vision.
I think we only made reference to that in the last episode, actually. So we both in the episode for Bluebird complimented the notion that the commercial they were filming in Bluebird shows up in this. That is very clever and a lot of fun.
There you go.
Cool. There we go.
Whew.
So as discussed on the previous episode, the next 2 will be going up next week, hopefully, all being well in terms of us recording them. And then a bit of a gap, and we'll put up the final 2 at some point in January.
There you go. So,
but don't worry, there's a lot of content for you to explore. There's rewind reviews, Dan's playing Save the Light, or whatever it's called.
Unleash the Light. Save the Light was the last one. This one's Unleash the Light. Although I don't blame you, Chris, because in the first 2 or 3 episodes, I literally either introed or outroed it as Save the Light.
There you go.
Hello and welcome to Dan Plays Save the... Damn it, Unleash the Light. That was like, yeah. So, yeah.
So yeah, don't worry. There's plenty of, and there's some Christmas-themed rewind reviews of the Snowman, and Gremlins. So.
And I'm debating. Time constraints, but in the build-up to Infinity Train Season 2, there's a chance I may watch Season 1, which I watched the first episode, loved it, and then just never got time to watch the rest. There's a chance I may watch Infinity Train and do a video or 2 of just me. Just briefly, like not a video with like proper visuals, or whatever. Just like 5-10 minutes, just me just spilling a few thoughts on that I may stick up on the YouTube channel as well. Like 10 minutes, just 10-minute little chats on my overall opinions on Infinity. I might do it in episode, like in groups of episodes. So like watch 2 or 3, talk about those. Watch 2 or 3, talk about those. Watch the last couple, because there's only 10 episodes. So, and I really want to watch it in time for when it comes back in January. So I'm going to see if I can find some time around the new year to do that. So when I finish doing Dan Plays, Unleash the Light, I can sort of replace those videos with me talking about Infinity Train. So keep your eye out.
Cool, nice.
Yeah, there you go.
Very exciting. And if we we won't speak to you. Well, if you just watch Steven University. We won't speak to you before, so have a very happy Christmas and a very merry New Year.
Yeah, it's just I'm doing the math in my head. You're right. The next time we'll speak to them will be the week of Christmas.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, we're doing... Yeah, forget that. Well, I mean, don't forget that. Like, have a good week. But yeah, I forgot. We've got 2 more, haven't we, before the...
We've got 2 more that are airing around Christmas week, actually. One of them will be coming out 24th. One of them will be coming out 26th or 27th. So we've got episodes for Christmas Eve and New Year's and Christmas and Boxing Day, sorry. So yeah, we'll speak to you guys at Christmas. So yeah, come back in a week's time for more of that. So yeah, I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And come back next week as we discuss Snow Day. I put weird inflection on that. Snow Day instead of Snow Day.